Welcome, everyone. Today, we delve into a tragic tale that explores the depths of human nature, an exploration of the forbidden fruit. Why do individuals commit heinous acts? The answers lie within the complex and multifaceted layers of humanity. Each action, no matter how dreadful, is rooted in reasons that beg to be examined. This narrative does not focus on those with mental health struggles or military personnel whose duties involve the act of killing. The primary motives for life-threatening actions often stem from material gain, revenge, the overstepping of self-defense boundaries, or sheer accidents. Most crimes, it appears, arise from domestic conflicts and disputes. When life seemed tranquil, unexpected violence erupted, revealing that such acts are not mere causes but grim consequences of a deteriorating human spirit, leaving indelible scars. On the morning of January 12, 2019, the tragic news broke. 65-year-old Michael Redlick had died. A revered former NBA executive with the Memphis Grizzlies and a cherished professor at the University of Central Florida, his death was initially attributed to a heart attack. However, the narrative would take a darker turn. Emergency services, upon arrival, discovered something far more sinister. Mr. Redlick had succumbed to a stab wound to the chest. The investigation initially entertained various theories, including the possibility of self-inflicted harm. However, forensic experts soon confirmed that this was, in fact, a criminal act, a deliberate taking of life. As the investigation unfolded, the identity of the perpetrator emerged: Michael's beloved wife. By June 2022, she was to stand trial. Yet the path to justice was anything but clear-cut. She consistently denied any wrongdoing regarding the intentional crime and often wavered in her testimony. The courtroom became a battleground, with both prosecution and defense embroiled in a protracted and heated legal struggle. Ultimately, the court's verdict took everyone by surprise. What truly transpired in the quiet suburb of Winter Park, Florida? Who emerges as the true victim in this tale of tragedy, and could this calamity have been averted? Join me as we unravel the complexities. Sitting in the defendant's chair is 46-year-old Danielle Redlick. The accused presents a striking figure, short in stature and slender in build. Her chestnut hair, now streaked with gray, could be a testament to the stress of her 3 years spent in custody, or perhaps a signal of her inner turmoil. Until the fateful events of 2019, she was an ordinary American woman, a devoted mother of two, and a professional in multimedia communications. Little did she know that her life would soon be thrust into the glaring spotlight of public scrutiny following the death of her husband. This is the harsh reality when the private lives of seemingly upstanding spouses are exposed for all to see. Danielle, born in 1976 in Florida, later relocated with her family to Cleveland, Ohio. Her childhood was unremarkable yet filled with kindness and creativity. As the eldest child, Danielle grew up with an appreciation for beauty that only deepened with time. Pursuing her passion, she enrolled at Valencia College, ultimately earning an Associate of Arts degree. She later transitioned to Baldwin Wallace University, where she began her studies in psychology. In 1996, tragedy struck. Danielle's mother, Caitlin Aquino, remarried, but that union was short-lived, ending after just 2 years. Caitlin's battle with breast cancer claimed her life, a struggle she had quietly endured for years, only alleviated by her husband's comprehensive insurance. In a quest for high-quality medical care, Michael Redlick formalized his marriage. Tragically, this decision would not save his wife. Following her death, he found himself not only a widower, but also stepping into the role of father to her children. Struggling to raise them alone, Michael sought help from Caitlin Aquino. At that time, 22-year-old Danielle was living independently, but she responded to her stepfather's call for support. Thus, after Caitlin's untimely passing, Danielle and her siblings, alongside their stepfather, all came under one roof. This was the same Michael who would later marry Danielle and become embroiled in a tragic incident one winter evening in 2019. Initially, their bond was one of friendship, with Danielle caring for the younger children while working part-time at a bar. Meanwhile, Michael was carving out his career in professional sports. Involved in player recruitment, he grew attached to the children, treating them as his own. He and Danielle found comfort in each other's presence. Over time, she began to see him as a reliable support, despite their significant age difference. Their connection was effortless, transcending the barriers of age and status. However, Danielle was hesitant to reveal their relationship to her family, opting to keep it hidden for a time. With Michael, she felt rejuvenated, loved, and secure. Using his connections, Michael helped Danielle secure a position at an advertising agency. With his lucrative income, he dedicated his free time to family life. For a while, everything seemed to be falling into place for them. Then came a tempting job offer for Michael, a position as vice president of corporate sales for the Memphis Grizzlies basketball club. This opportunity, however, required a move to another state. Without hesitation, he invited Danielle to join him, but she hesitated. Reluctant to disrupt her established lifestyle and still focused on her studies, Danielle turned down the offer. Yet their relationship persevered, often marked by long-distance visits. One day, Michael revealed to her the house he had purchased for them. The cottage, nestled in a picturesque area by the Mississippi River, was a charming sanctuary. Impressed, Danielle ultimately decided to move in with him. To ensure her commitment, Michael procured an intriguing job for her in the radio industry. Looking back, Danielle remembered that everything seemed perfect at first. Yet it was Michael's job that would later introduce unforeseen changes. Years later, during the court proceedings against Danielle, her 15-year-old daughter, Jaden, took the stand. She painted a picture of Michael as an exceptional father, devoted to his family. Together with her 8-year-old brother, Sawyer, they attended one of the best schools, encouraged by their father's support in sports programs. Jaden shared a close bond with Michael, a stark contrast to her relationship with her mother. She described Danielle as hysterical, manipulative, and toxic at times, believing that her mother instigated conflicts while Michael sought to maintain peace within the family. Jaden, inspired by her father's unwavering support, dreamed of a future in sports. Unlike her mother, Danielle, Jaden shared a close bond with Michael, a connection that stood in stark contrast to her feelings toward Danielle. To Jaden, Danielle was often a source of turmoil. She viewed her mother as hysterical, manipulative, and toxic. In Jaden's eyes, while Danielle instigated conflicts within their home, Michael endeavored to keep the family united, striving for peace amidst the chaos. But was the perception of the elder daughter accurate? What lay beneath the surface of what appeared to be a happy and united family? Michael Redlick's new role brought with it an avalanche of responsibility and stress. His fraught relationship with management weighed heavily on him, leaving him increasingly worn and fatigued. In an attempt to unwind from the mounting pressures of life, Michael sought solace in alcohol. What began as an occasional drink soon morphed into a daily ritual. Nights turned into a blur as he often returned home late, intoxicated and simmering with anger. The atmosphere in the Redlick household was thick with tension. Danielle, striving to support her husband through his struggles, often found herself in a cycle of calm and chaos. After heartfelt conversations, Michael would assure her he would change, yet his promises quickly faded into forgotten whispers. One fateful evening, Michael missed a dinner they had planned together, a disheartening repetition of past occurrences. This time, however, they had purposefully arranged the evening to reconnect. Danielle's disappointment was palpable, igniting a spark of frustration within her. She lamented that if he could not make time for her, he should have warned her in advance. As she headed for the door, an ill-timed joke slipped from her lips, striking a nerve with Michael. The air crackled with unspoken rage. In an explosive moment, Michael stood in the doorway, his hand striking her face with brutal force. The impact knocked her back, and in a heart-stopping instant, she saw her clothes on the floor stained with her own blood. Shock coursed through her as she recoiled from her husband. Michael, overcome with emotion, began to cry and apologize, his distress evident. In a desperate bid for redemption, he rushed Danielle to a familiar sports doctor, where he explained the shocking turn of events. The doctor assessed the injuries and provided urgent first aid. The doctor's recommendations were alarming. She needed to see a dentist and possibly a plastic surgeon due to the severity of her injuries, including a chipped front tooth. The next day, Michael orchestrated an elaborate dinner, showering her with attention and care, a stark contrast to the previous night's violence. Danielle, moved by his gestures, chose to forgive him, opting not to report the incident. In a state with strict domestic violence laws, she felt a wave of sympathy for her husband, deciding against causing him further trouble. Yet, this was not the first alarming sign. Danielle had faced similar behavior in the past. While living in Cleveland, a chance encounter with an ex-boyfriend at a concert ignited Michael's jealousy, leading to a night of sarcastic jabs that escalated unexpectedly into violence. On their drive home, Michael's words dripped with sarcasm. When Danielle responded in kind, he struck her, only to apologize moments later, claiming that her actions had hurt his feelings. Forgiveness came easy for Danielle, who internalized the blame, convinced that their love could withstand such storms. Over time, the incident faded into memory, an unfortunate chapter in their relationship. In 2003, the couple welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Jaden. A year later, they formalized their union in marriage, marking a bright period in their lives where everything seemed to align perfectly. However, beneath the veneer of domestic bliss, Michael grappled with persistent challenges at work. A shift in management dashed his hopes for a promotion, and years later, the family welcomed a second child, a son named Sawyer. As devoted parents, they poured themselves into raising their children. If not for Michael's job-related stress, perhaps the tensions could have been managed. But as he began drinking again, conflicts erupted more frequently. During one heated argument, he crossed a line, grabbing Danielle by the throat and pinning her against the wall, signaling a dark turn in their lives. The terror consumed her. This time, Danielle Redlick could no longer tolerate Michael Redlick's violent behavior. In a desperate bid for safety, she packed her bags, gathered the children, and sought refuge with her relatives. Initially, they had disapproved of her marriage, but eventually they reconciled with her choice. Despite the upheaval, Michael persistently sought to mend their fractured relationship. He visited her repeatedly, filled with apologies and pleas for her return. Gradually, their bond was restored, yet the following years remained tumultuous as the Redlick family moved several times. The family patriarch found himself in California, where he accepted a job, and they lived for approximately 5 years. However, this period was far from successful. Michael's struggles resurfaced, and he succumbed to the bottle once more. As fate would have it, both Danielle and Michael faced unemployment, relying heavily on their dwindling savings. By 2014, they were preparing for yet another relocation, this time to Indiana, where the prospects appeared promising. To initiate the move, Michael ventured ahead alone, while Danielle remained in California with their children, needing time to sell their home and belongings. The relentless cycle of moving had taken its toll on the family. The children struggled to adapt to the ever-changing environment. The entire process dragged on for a year. During this time, while their financial situation began to improve, the strain on their marriage deepened. The distance and infrequent reunions began to erode their connection. Communication dwindled, and when they finally came together, new tensions surfaced. Danielle started to harbor suspicions of Michael's infidelity. His demeanor shifted. He became cold and withdrawn, and the passion that once ignited their relationship dimmed. Yet, when confronted, Michael found the courage to admit that his age and declining health were factors at play. He had hesitated to share this, fearing it would drive his younger wife away. Danielle, appreciative of his honesty, rallied to support him once again. After experimenting with various medications, they opted for a regimen of hormone injections. The testosterone revitalized Michael, restoring his vigor and youthfulness. However, this resurgence came hand in hand with a troubling increase in aggression. One fateful evening, while they watched a movie together, Michael drifted off to sleep. Danielle went upstairs to rest. The next morning would take a dark turn. As she brushed her teeth in the bathroom, Michael stormed in and struck her on the head. His justification was that she hadn't woken him the night before. In that moment, Danielle, feeling the weight of their troubled history, declared she was leaving. This declaration only fueled Michael's rage. He lunged at her, choking her with a ferocity that left her gasping for breath, teetering on the brink of consciousness. As she felt herself slipping away, a darkness enveloped her. When Danielle finally regained her awareness, she found Michael looming over her, fear and confusion etched on his face as he begged for forgiveness. In that moment of despair, all she could do was silently crawl away, the foundation of their marriage shattered. Despite the horrific incident, they continued to share the same household and raise their children together. However, from that day forward, everything changed irreparably between them. It became clear that a point of no return had been crossed. Michael turned to alcohol more frequently, and conflicts erupted over the smallest issues. The frequency of his physical aggression escalated, yet Danielle remained. Despite her discontent and growing resentment, her love for him endured. The ongoing turmoil took a toll on Danielle Redlick, manifesting in nervousness and irritability. She withdrew into herself, seeking solace in photography as a means of distraction. Yet the familial facade remained intact, projecting an image of respectability. By the end of 2014, the Redlicks made a significant move to Florida, where most of their disagreements had remained confined to the walls of their home. Michael Redlick, weary of the relentless stress, opted for a career shift. He accepted a role as Director of External Affairs and Partnership Programs at the University of Central Florida, stepping into a teaching position. Although the financial rewards paled in comparison to his previous NBA career, the new job offered him enjoyment and a sense of stability. Initially, the family rented a house, but after a year they purchased a stunning Mediterranean-style property in the charming Winter Park neighborhood. The home was impressive, boasting substantial square footage that provided ample space for their family. Danielle cherished the attic floor, transforming it into her personal retreat. There, she often sought refuge during Michael's episodes of anger, particularly when his testosterone injections rejuvenated him, restoring both energy and intimacy. However, even in moments of closeness, his harsh demeanor lingered, leaving their relationship fraught with tension and instability. As this tumult unfolded, Danielle found herself ensnared in a growing alcohol dependency, while Michael continued to work tirelessly to support the family. Juggling household responsibilities and caring for their children, Danielle increasingly retreated into herself. The culmination of their numerous disputes led to their separation in 2016, yet Michael remained a constant presence in their children's lives, providing financial support and managing the household bills. By this time, Danielle had secured a job at a local school. New friends aided her escape from the depths of depression, and the structure of her responsibilities began to restore her independence, even as she continued to see Michael. He was free to come and go as he pleased, but this arrangement proved volatile. Following yet another argument, Danielle found herself in the hospital, battling a concussion. Once again, she chose silence, fearing that revealing the truth about the altercation would bring trouble for her husband. This time, however, Michael misinterpreted her silence. During a subsequent interrogation, Danielle finally broke her silence, recounting a harrowing incident from early October 2016. Her husband had attempted to run her over with his car. The only reason she survived was her quick reflexes, allowing her to leap into a nearby bush. After this terrifying encounter, Danielle sought help at the police department. However, when detectives pressed for details, she hesitated, ultimately deciding against pursuing the matter. The familiar fear that had kept her quiet all along resurfaced. In time, the couple reconciled and moved back in together, a decision that would prove disastrous for both. On the morning of January 12, 2019, a chilling 911 call shattered the silence. A woman, identifying herself as Danielle Redlick, reported that her husband, Michael, had succumbed to what she claimed was a heart attack. Despite their tumultuous relationship, Michael and Danielle eventually reconciled, choosing to live together once more. This decision would prove to be fateful for both of them. On the morning of January 12, 2019, a 911 call shattered the quiet. On the line was Danielle Redlick, who claimed her husband Michael had suffered a heart attack. However, when emergency services arrived at the scene, they were met with an unsettling sight, accompanied by an overpowering odor of cleaning agents. At the threshold of the living room, responders discovered a bucket filled with pink water. What lay beyond that threshold was far from a natural tragedy. A man lay lifeless on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. It became evident that Michael's demise was not the result of a heart attack. Michael Redlick's life was extinguished, not by natural causes as his wife had claimed, but by a penetrating knife wound. The woman who made the frantic call was discovered with cuts on her wrists, raising immediate concerns. Paramedics rushed to her aid, administering first aid before transporting her to the hospital. In their wake, police arrived, ready to peel back the layers of this tragedy. Upon examining the scene, law enforcement was convinced that Michael Redlick had not succumbed to a self-inflicted injury. The circumstances surrounding his death raised red flags, and forensic analysis would later confirm that the blood found throughout the home belonged to the deceased. At the entrance, a bucket filled with a pink liquid revealed a grim truth. It was nothing more than diluted blood. It appeared that someone, possibly the homeowner herself, had attempted to erase a trail leading from the bedroom to the living room, suggesting that the body had been dragged. Despite the desperate cleaning efforts, not all evidence had been obliterated. Blood spatter marked the corners of the room and splattered across the walls. A large knife lay ominously at the entrance to the kitchen, while 3 smaller knives were discovered in the sink, each one whispering secrets of the violent encounter. Detectives were eager to speak with Danielle Redlick. Once doctors confirmed that her injuries were not life-threatening, she was brought in for questioning. During the interview, her narrative shifted repeatedly, each change adding to the growing suspicion surrounding her account. Initially, Danielle claimed she believed her husband had died from heart disease. Yet her story took a darker turn as she suggested that he had taken his own life following a heated argument. Experts, however, quickly dismissed her claims. A wound of such severity is notoriously difficult to inflict upon oneself. Those who contemplate ending their lives often choose methods that are simpler and less painful. The autopsy revealed that Michael had succumbed to blood loss. Had he received timely medical assistance, he might have survived. Additionally, he bore a laceration above his left eye. Toxicology reports painted a clearer picture, revealing a high level of alcohol in his system. The investigation unearthed that just days before the tragedy, an explosive argument had erupted between the couple, witnessed by their elder daughter, Jaden. On that fateful day, Michael had been drinking heavily when he stormed into the bathroom, where Danielle was attempting to escape the chaos. Jaden, in an act of desperation, intervened, snatching the bottle from her father's grasp. After this confrontation, Danielle left the house, only to return later. Once Michael succumbed to sleep, Jaden observed a side of her father she had never witnessed before, an explosion of rage for which he later expressed deep remorse. Despite this, she maintained that he was a loving and caring father, albeit with a volatile temper. While Jaden asserted that her mother often instigated conflicts, the following day brought reconciliation. Michael invited Danielle and their children to a soccer game, yet witnesses noted that Danielle appeared withdrawn and upset, barely engaging in conversation. That evening, the couple dropped their children off at a friend's house for a sleepover, leaving the adults alone. Later, after a stop at McDonald's, Danielle returned home around 10:30 p.m., only to find her husband inebriated. During dinner, a message arrived on Danielle's phone from an unknown man. Michael, seething with jealousy, saw the message, took a bite of his hamburger, and spat it at his wife in rage. In a fit of fury, he attacked her, attempting to strangle her. In a desperate act of self-defense, Danielle seized the nearest object, a knife, and stabbed him in the chest. As Michael fell to the ground, blood gushed from the wound. In her panic, Danielle claimed she immediately dialed emergency services, but in her frantic state, she mistakenly dialed the wrong number. In the aftermath of the incident, Danielle Redlick's actions came under intense scrutiny. In a state of shock, she lay next to her husband, Michael, falling into a restless sleep that lasted until morning. This lengthy period of inactivity, spanning 11 hours, was her explanation for the events that transpired. Yet, when the prosecution confronted her about the inconsistencies in her emergency call, a chilling truth emerged. As the interrogation unfolded, Danielle revealed her fear that no one would believe her claim of self-defense. This fear was not without justification. It was rooted in her troubled past and the events that led up to that fateful night. Just weeks before the tragedy, Danielle had been embroiled in a violent altercation with friends. When the police arrived, she had resisted arrest, even attempting to bite one of the officers. Her refusal to cooperate with law enforcement had already drawn attention to her turbulent behavior. This led to charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest, and Danielle had been on probation for nearly a year. During the investigation, it became evident that the cuts on her wrists were self-inflicted, with Danielle claiming they were a result of her emotional turmoil and a desperate attempt to end her life. However, the nature of her injuries told a different story. They were superficial, not life-threatening, casting doubt on her claims. As investigators delved deeper, they found that Danielle was far from the innocent victim she painted herself to be, especially upon learning of Michael's infidelities. In a twist of betrayal, Danielle had created a profile on a dating site, seeking companionship while also engaging in unfaithful behavior. Her profile proudly declared her status as single, despite still being married. Analysis of countless messages exchanged between Michael and Danielle revealed a complex web of love and betrayal. While she professed her love for her husband, the discovery of his affairs left her feeling utterly betrayed and disillusioned. The knowledge that Michael planned to leave her further fueled her sense of abandonment. Despite her outward appearance of remorse and desire to restore their relationship, Danielle struggled to comprehend her husband's actions. She felt heartbroken, having devoted the best years of her life to a man who failed to appreciate her. The prosecution seized on this emotional turmoil, arguing that the crime was premeditated, a violent response born from rage and betrayal. They painted her as a woman scorned, unable to forgive her husband's infidelity and the impending divorce. Neighbors corroborated this narrative, recalling how both Michael and Danielle were prone to explosive arguments, often escalating into physical altercations. They were a couple marked by conflict, yet those who knew them also had differing views. Michael was described as kind and helpful, while Danielle was often seen as quarrelsome and difficult. Video evidence captured the defendant in moments of irrationality, attacking her husband during one of their disputes. Friends and family members echoed the prosecution's portrayal, recounting how one of them had called her crazy, yet assured everyone that as long as steak knives were kept out of reach, all would be fine. Danielle's defense, however, hinged on her claim of self-defense. Her lawyer argued that Danielle's actions were dictated by a history of emotional and physical abuse. Relatives who had witnessed their arguments confirmed that Michael was not only rough, but also emotionally abusive, often humiliating her behind closed doors. Some family members noted that Danielle had become increasingly nervous and quick-tempered over the years, a change they attributed to the strains of her marriage. Yet the prosecution maintained that her decision to leave Michael to die was indicative of premeditated intent. They pointed to her activity on a dating app the very night of the incident, suggesting that her actions were driven by a deep-seated hatred and resentment, possibly even a desire for financial gain following the divorce. The case was shaping up to be a complex tale of love, betrayal, and a desperate fight for survival. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Danielle Redlick stood to lose a significant portion of the wealth she had accumulated alongside her late husband, Michael Redlick. With her net worth estimated at a staggering $1.2 million at the time of his death, the stakes were high. Yet troubling evidence emerged, suggesting that Danielle had repeatedly altered her statements, seemingly attempting to obfuscate the truth and confuse the investigation. Accusations of evidence tampering loomed large over her. In contrast, the defense painted a grim picture of Michael Redlick as a manipulator and predator. Following the death of his first wife, he relentlessly pursued his stepdaughter, molding her into the image he desired, a chilling testament to his controlling nature. During the tumultuous investigation, the prosecution extended a plea deal to Danielle. They offered her the opportunity to plead guilty to manslaughter, which would have secured her a mere 10 years in prison. However, in a bold move, she declined the offer. Despite the looming threat of a life sentence if found guilty of first- or second-degree murder, Danielle steadfastly maintained her innocence. The outcome of the trial would leave many in shock. On July 17, 2022, the jury reached their verdict. In a surprising turn of events, they found Danielle Redlick not guilty of premeditated murder, believing her actions were indeed in self-defense. However, they did convict her of tampering with evidence, resulting in a 5-year suspended sentence, with 3 years already served. These years were credited on August 5, 2022, coinciding with the day the sentence was announced. In a dramatic twist, the defendant walked free from the courtroom. The question lingered: was the verdict just? Or had the jurors been masterfully misled into believing that Danielle's actions in taking Michael's life were coldly calculated? As the dust settled, the debate raged on. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe to the channel for more shocking stories yet to unfold.